with the court's rights to challenge the executive powers and decision-making of government. And we believe that it's very important that we have access to the courts to challenge irrational decisions that are made. And government do make irrational decisions from time to time. And if you take away that right, then we don't live in a democracy, basically.
Now, AfriForum has donated 100,000 rand towards your legal costs. What does that mean for your movement?
Well, you know, we've raised over 5.5 million, and they're not the only contributor. Big business has given us over 3.5 million, the public another 1.5 million. So we don't mind who donates, because this is a case for the people, as we said, in protecting their rights to decisions that aren't reasonable.
Yeah, and the Democratic Alliance will now be a friend of the court in this case. Why have you accepted their support?
Well, their application has been set aside. It's been rejected, so they're not going to be in the court on this one. They did apply, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not for us to decide. It's for the courts to decide whether there is enough additional input that any friend of the court application can bring to the case.
Where does this court case today take this matter, in your view?
Well, today's just an appeal against the interdict. The big case comes on the 26th of November, which is the actual review in the High Court as to whether e-tolling was right for South Africa, for the citizens or not. So I think we need to wait for what happens there. This appeal really says, you know, should we continue to e-toll or not? Can we set aside that interdict? Now, I don't think SANRAL could start tomorrow or in the next month or two. They've got to re-engage this whole thing, get the public back on board. And that's going to take a long time, if it ever. That's the biggest hurdle I believe they have. And then, you know, to get this thing going by October or November, and then the High Court review stops it again. It's one of these crazy things. But remember, e-tolling has been in a stop-start phase for over a year now. It's had 5 postponements. Most of those are because they're not ready anyway, and they're still not ready, we say. So today's case, I think, is more around, does a court have a role for society to protect the citizens from potential abuse of government decision-making? That's the crux of this case. It's a watershed case.
What is the government arguing? That perhaps it limits the ability of government to govern, and perhaps during election times, that's exactly when citizens can then say, look, your decisions have been irrational, we're voting you out of office, we want somebody else who can make a different kind of decision.
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't quite happen like that. Now we're getting into the realms of politics and what sways public thinking when it comes to voting. But I think it's very important that if we are going to live in a democracy, and many governments from time to time will make a decision that goes against, and it's not a small decision. This is a huge magnitude. And when that does happen, I think they do need to be able to be challenged. And the courts are our last resource and mechanism to go that route. Remember, before we brought this interdict, there was a year or so of, and more than that, of engagement, heavy engagement with SANRAL, who continued to just say, no, we're going to do it our way, and we have no regard for what your views are on this. And so I think it was a last resort, and thankfully the courts saw it our way.
Yeah. So just in terms of alternative proposals, what are you putting on the table? What are you suggesting SANRAL should do to collect the funds?
Well, we have a fuel levy process and mechanism right now which is very efficient. It attracts literally zero administration costs, whereas the current e-tolling cost is over 1 billion to 1.5 billion rand a year. And we're saying, can you imagine how many extra roads and extra good stuff we can do for society with that 1.5 billion, as opposed to paying it over to ETC, of which some of those profits go offshore as well. I mean, that's crazy. It's our tax. You on my tax we're paying, and it's going into a profit of a company offshore. So that's the big crux of the matter. The fuel levy is very efficient, and we say we need to look at that.
Would it apply to all South Africans?
Yes, it should, but these are all South Africans' roads. Remember, when people upgrade the roads in Durban and Cape Town, Gautengers don't have a problem with that. In fact, we think it's important. So when we upgrade the roads from Volksrust to Standerton, you know, we pay for that. It's not those guys down there. So you can't toll those roads. So you can't have tolling in some areas and not in others.
I was driving to Zastron, and I mean, that road on the Eastern Free State, I think there was about 150 potholes there.
Oh, it's crazy.
And I must tell you, I was looking at it and I was thinking, I mean, why not toll in Gauteng so that this money is freed for people here in Zastron to get better roads, for instance?
we need all our roads. There's a huge backlog, 150 to 180 billion rands worth of backlog. Now, remember, the fuel levy puts in 44 billion rand a year now going forward. So we need to make sure that that money is used wisely and that our roads are attended to. You know, it's not that we don't want to pay for our roads. Ours is all about understanding that all the upgrading and infrastructure spend has to come from our tax money. It's just how do you spend that money? How wisely do you spend it? And we want some transparency on that. We've got long-distance tolling, what's happening with that funding. There's a lot of money being collected there as well. And let's get on with building roads, but let's fund them properly and efficiently. This e-tolling process is very administratively burdened. There's going to be a lot of non-compliance. It is very expensive to control and run. And we're saying if you scrap that and do it another way, which is the road, the fuel levy way, we'll have a lot of extra funds freed up.
Right. Well, I think we invited government. It would have been nice to hear perhaps from Nazir Ali or somebody else to state their case, and we'll try and bring them in and hear what their view on the matter is. Thank you very much, Wayne, for joining us here on Morning Live this morning.